Hello everyone, welcome to our channel that takes you on an exciting journey through real-life mysteries and stories solved in the most intriguing ways. If you're a fan of captivating narratives and tales that make you rethink the world around you, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to support us by liking and subscribing so you won't miss any of our new content. We're thrilled to share this special story with you today. Section 1: London in the late 19th century. Life in Whitechapel. In the late 19th century, London was at the height of its economic and industrial power, but there was a massive gap between the classes. The streets of Whitechapel represented another side of the city, poor and neglected. Whitechapel was filled with migrants and the impoverished, living in squalid conditions, with old and dilapidated buildings. Poverty was the norm, and many women were forced into prostitution to survive. It was estimated that around 1,200 women in the area worked as prostitutes. In this environment, daily life was full of fear, with small crimes happening regularly in the area. But in the summer of 1888, a horrific crime took place that would go beyond the usual petty crimes. It was a crime that would go down in history. In these dark times, a mysterious killer, Jack the Ripper, emerged, a name that would be etched in the history of London as one of the most dangerous killers in modern history. At this time, London lacked the advanced technology we have today. The police relied on traditional investigative methods such as interrogations and witness testimonies, and there were no security cameras or modern tools to help solve the crimes. No clear leads were available to the police at first. Section 2: The first victim, Mary Ann Nichols. Mary Ann Nichols was the first victim of Jack the Ripper. On August 31, 1888, her body was found on Dorset Street, one of the narrow, dark alleys in Whitechapel. Mary Ann was a poor woman, one of many who had been forced into prostitution for survival. Her body was horrifying. She had been stabbed several times in the abdomen and chest, with deep wounds indicating that the killer had considerable skill with a knife. This crime was different from other usual crimes in the area. It wasn't a robbery or a personal dispute. It was a brutal and random murder. The police were unable to find any witnesses who could provide information about the killer, but the local press began to stir public anxiety, and the case became a media sensation. This was the first sign that this might be the beginning of something much larger than just a single crime. Section 3: The second murder, Annie Chapman. On September 8, 1888, Jack the Ripper claimed his second victim, Annie Chapman, another woman who worked as a prostitute. Her body was found in River Street in Whitechapel, and she had been stabbed multiple times in the neck and chest. The wounds on her body were deep, showing that the killer had used a sharp knife, and there were signs that he had acted quickly. This time, there was some evidence found, such as muddy footprints near the crime scene, but it wasn't enough to identify the killer. The local press continued to closely follow the case, causing the police to intensify their efforts. Whitechapel was in a state of panic after the second murder, with many people starting to believe that there was a serial killer on the loose. The rumors about the killer's identity began to spread, and the police were now connecting the dots between the crimes. Section 4: The third murder, Elizabeth Stride. On September 30, 1888, the third victim, Elizabeth Stride, was found. Like the others, she was a woman involved in prostitution, and she had suffered a similar fate. Elizabeth had been stabbed in the neck, but what made this crime different was the fact that her body was discovered almost immediately after the attack, meaning she likely didn't die in the same manner as the other victims. Despite the fact that there was evidence pointing to the same killer, there were no clear suspects, and the police were unable to make a connection between this murder and the others. The killings became more widespread in the press, and the name Jack the Ripper started to dominate the media. The police, still unable to find any solid clues, intensified their search. Section 5. The Fourth Murder, Mary Jane Kelly. On November 9, 1888, Jack the Ripper committed his most brutal crime, the Mary Jane Kelly murder. She was the fourth victim and the only one whose murder occurred inside her own home, in her apartment at Mytelle Street in Whitechapel. The brutality of this crime was unparalleled. Mary Jane Kelly's body was found mutilated in the most horrifying manner. Her flesh was disfigured, and parts of her body had been torn apart. It was evident that the killer had taken his time and had a level of skill, as the wounds were carefully inflicted. What made this crime especially chilling was the level of violence involved. Mary Jane Kelly had been dismembered in such a way that it led some investigators to believe the killer may have had medical or surgical knowledge, given the precise nature of the mutilations. This crime, more than any other, was a clear signal that the killer enjoyed the act of violence, and it cemented Jack the Ripper's reputation as one of the most terrifying serial killers in history. The police were still unable to identify the killer, and although there were numerous theories, there was no solid evidence to point to any specific suspect. Section 6. The Ripper Letters, Threatening Messages from the Killer. As the murders escalated, Jack the Ripper began sending threatening letters to the press, further escalating the public's fear. On September 27, 1888, he sent a letter to the Ladies' Journal, threatening to kill more women and detailing how he would continue his killings. The letter was written in a menacing tone and hinted that the killer was enjoying the fear he caused. The message bore a chilling signature, and no fingerprints were ever found. The killer seemed to be playing a game of cat and mouse with both the police and the press. The letters were a taunt to the authorities, showing the killer's complete control over the situation and adding to the public's panic. With each letter, the media and the public were more and more convinced that they were dealing with a highly intelligent and dangerous individual. Section 7. The Disappearance of Jack the Ripper. After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly on November 9, 1888, Jack the Ripper disappeared without a trace. The killing stopped suddenly, which led investigators to believe that the killer either died or became ill, making it impossible for him to continue his crimes. Others speculated that he may have left the country to commit murders elsewhere, but there was no evidence to support these theories. Despite the intense investigation, the case was never solved. The mystery of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest unsolved criminal cases in history, with many theories emerging over the years about the identity of the killer. Some believe he was a doctor, while others think he could have been a member of the royal family or a local person who knew the area intimately. Section 8. The Cultural Legacy of Jack the Ripper. Today, Jack the Ripper remains one of the most infamous serial killers in history, and the case is still widely discussed and studied. The identity of Jack the Ripper is still a mystery, despite many theories that have emerged over the years. Some believe he may have been a well-known person, while others suggest he could have been just another faceless figure from the slums of Whitechapel. The legend of Jack the Ripper has become a part of popular culture, inspiring countless books, films, and documentaries. The murders remain a dark chapter in the history of London, and the fear that gripped the city in 1888 continues to resonate today. Conclusion: the story of Jack the Ripper remains one of the most thrilling and mysterious tales in the history of crime. Despite more than 130 years passing since the horrific murders, the killer's identity remains unknown, and the questions surrounding his identity and motives continue to spark curiosity. The crimes committed by Jack the Ripper still instill fear in the hearts of those who read about them, and his legacy is etched in history, with the echoes of that fear still resonating in the minds of many. This enigmatic mystery, which shook London in 1888, will forever be a part of popular culture, inspiring numerous books and films, and continues to be a subject of interest for researchers and investigators to this day.